Cheers. Appreciate you taking time out of your day to come hang and chat.
It's always a pleasure.
To cut, light, and
Always a
connect.
pleasure.
I just wanted to really hone in on conversations that I feel like have often been occurring behind the scenes and even more so now, just as people start to venture out after the pandemic and what things look like. You know, we certainly experienced it here trying to launch something new in the market to see how all sorts of clientele, all the different sorts of guests that come through, they're being very intentional with, all right, if we're going to go out tonight, you know, we're not just going to the usual spot we rely on,
Right.
partially because a lot of those places either changed hands or changed names or are still scaling back into operation. But a lot of people are being much more forthcoming with, okay, if you and I are going to go out and we spend a decent amount of money based off of what we earn, I would hope that we have, you know, whether it be cool stories for social media, but at the very least, great opportunity for conversation, great opportunity to create an experience that we will be able to look back on. And, you know, I guess I'm just kind of curious what your impressions have been as people in this market try to resume business as usual of, you know, what are the biggest changes that you've noticed?
So, what was interesting to me when COVID was first hitting and restaurants were first closing, and in my personal story, I left what was a very good gig at Charlotte Agenda, then and is now Axios now, because I wanted to start a website about food. I wanted to start a website about dining, a website that put restaurants in a larger cultural context. And then suddenly all the restaurants closed.
I was going to say, timing is just
phenomenal timing,
phenomenal.
right? So one of the things that I noticed was immediately dining became something that was more about community than it had ever been before. And I'll give you an example. I was out 6 to 7 nights a week before COVID happened. Any restaurant that was new, I was there. Any restaurant that I just hadn't been to, I was there. Because, you know, for me, that was the most important way to spend my leisure time. And I wanted to invest in that and make it part of, you know, my output of content. When COVID happens and you experience not just restaurants are closed or difficult to get to, but a legitimate fear, right? You're legitimately afraid every time you have to leave your house when COVID first dropped. So it became based on community for me. I went to Sapienza, Pizzeria Sapienza, in the garden level of the Sky House apartment building. Great pizza restaurant run by Nick and Sal down there. I went there because I had a previous relationship with them. Because before COVID happened, they would sit down at the bar with me because they noticed I came in a bunch of times and they would buy me a beer and we would chat about Charlotte stuff. I went to Vana. I went to Vana because I had a relationship with Corey Smith. And I knew she did, you know, some PR work for them and stuff like that. So dining became deeply focused on community. Where do I have the relationships? Where do I know my bartender and I know they could really use a tip because times are tough for them? You know, what is the meal that gives me comfort in the most stressful times that I have? And I think that restaurants are and bars and, you know, cocktail lounges or whatever you are, they're really going to need to start zeroing in on that. You can no longer just be a bar. You have to be a bar that's about something. You have to be a bar that says something. You have to be a bar that presents something unique, even if it's just your people, even if it's just your bartender.
Yeah, I mean, even just conceptually finding a unique way to tie in, and all of a sudden, community, it's partnership in some way. That all of a sudden, like, yes, even though at its core it is somewhat transactional, at the end of the day, you have staff leaving, looking forward to coming back because they're like, well, I wonder what story he's going to come with from that other place or his work next. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, it's not just a repetition of, well, we're offering the same thing. Because all of a sudden, no, he gets access to this. Mm-hmm. You're able to create so many cool opportunities as a result.
Is that hard for you in the space of trying to form those relationships with like a lot of different people, a lot of different figures? So, I mean, for instance, you know, we bumped into Nikki earlier, and you know, Corey's a good friend of you guys, Corey Smith out there at Black Wednesday. Is it tough for you guys to really understand, like, putting in that same level of personal effort to someone who randomly shows up at the bar on Tuesday night as you do with a Nikki Wolf or a Corey Smith or another media type?
I think staffing was a huge part of this. And so, blessing and a curse of COVID and this time when all of a sudden you're trying to go through resumes. You have a combination of the ones that are applying because they just need the work, but then you also have some that are very purposeful, seeking out something that they feel is going to be rewarding and something where they can leave their touch on it. And that's a perfect example where you have multiple people here and they were known for, even pre-COVID, putting their stamp on it at other locations in town. And so, whether it be Soul or Tilt or otherwise, and of course, all of the different things that you immediately associate with those names. Could be tapas, could be dive bar, could be everything in between. But they were able to kind of instill as part of their offering to a guest, listen, you could be the person who owns this city in some people's eyes, or you could be someone who just, finished a shift down the street and is just looking for one while the traffic dies down before he goes home.
Right.
You're going to be welcomed.
It's going to be a tough transition, and I think that's why people really still need to acknowledge that the hospitality industry has a lot further to still go. There's a lot of ground to make up. There's a lot of loans that still have to be repaid. And they've got to do it during one of the worst staffing crises that a lot of people have ever experienced. I think that there were a lot of people here who were workers in this scene who already felt as if they don't have to take any crap from you, boss who I hate, because I'll go to the bar down the street and there's a new restaurant opening next week and there'll be a new one the week after that. And then you get into what happened with COVID, and a lot of them suddenly didn't have access to the main area of income that they'd had their entire lives. And these people did not sit there and go hungry for 12 months. A lot of them moved on. A lot of them found something else to do, whether it was a side hustle or they were, driving for Uber or something like that, or they took some YouTube courses in computer programming that they always wanted to do, or they've always thought they'd be a really great Twitch streamer. So they got themselves a little ring light, and now they play Rocket League for 5,000 people every week. Those people have now realized, I don't have to be on my feet. I don't have to go to a bar and sling drinks. So I think that that worker shortage and that worker crisis, as people are calling it, a lot of it's not just that they're not ready to come back yet, or they're looking for different ways and stuff like that. A lot of these workers are gone. They're gone. They found something else to do, and they're probably not coming back. So, what's the evolution of that? Do you guys just wait until the kids who are 17 now turn 23 in 5 years, and now you got a whole new generation of workers? Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough call to make and a tough sell to make. It's almost the opposite in the quote unquote professional world, because a lot of these jobs, have been shrunk. And people have absorbed responsibilities from cuts that were made. And there's a lot of jobs in that space that don't exist anymore. So you guys have workers that no longer exist. We have jobs that no longer exist. And, I could not imagine being a 22 or 23-year-old coming out of college now. Imagine you spend your entire life looking forward to what your senior year of college is going to look like and all this good stuff, and then you lose it. You don't get your senior year of college. And, the older you get, the more you realize each year you have is actually the only time to get that year. You don't get that one again. So these kids aren't going to have another senior year of college. They're not going to have another first year of their career. So I've been really curious about that is what's it like? When I interview people for my current job at Jumbo, when we're looking to hire people, I always ask them, how's your job search going? How's it mentally going for you? Are you good? Are you okay?
Oh, I'd be real curious with this.
It's tough because they want to give a nice professional, coiffed answer and things like that.
Of course.
I remember at times when I've been interviewing, and my first job was actually teaching. I was a public school teacher for 4 years, And when I was transitioning into marketing, I quit teaching. And you can't go back to teaching for 6 months after you quit. So it really got kind of touch and go there at moments, because the one thing I was really certified to do and had experience doing, I couldn't technically do unless I wanted to go to Union County or something. So,
right.
And who would ever want to do that? So I remember every email back, right? Every phone interview I could possibly have felt like life or death. And it was so high stress. And I feel bad when I get on with these kids and they're so nervous and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, just relax. I'm just a person. You'll find it eventually. So that's, I don't know. It's tough for the younger folks these days. I don't know. The guys behind the camera are pretty young. Maybe they've experienced some of this stuff too.
It's bizarre because to me, I think about the fact that when I was coming out of the Abbey down the way, everybody was trying to recover from 2008.
That's true.
And legitimately, at first, I was like, wow, a business management degree, and I'm not sure what this looks like. And yeah, I remember going to those career fairs in Uptown, just being like, I don't know what this looks like. And sure enough, I had said at the time, I was like, you know what? I've been working in food and beverage. I'm going to stick to that, try to find a management role in it and find a way to utilize that for now. And, well, turns out I found something that I actually have a lot of passion behind. And even taking a sabbatical to try to do sales and whatnot, I find myself getting back behind the bar on the weekends, and you find yourself involved in it, and you find a passion, and it will probably take longer than you hope. And it might take getting prescribed something just to help with the anxiety for a little bit, or the right outlet to go work out and just work it off. But yeah, it is there. This has been awesome, sir.
It's been a pleasure. Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man.